So if you've ever cut anything out on a CNC or even on a scroll saw, especially when you're dealing with letters, you're going to run into this problem. In the center of letters, there's always this centerpiece, and the P's and the A's and the D's and things like that, that is typically going to fall out. Now, you could make a stencils type of letter, but you might not always want to do that. I've shown in the past on previous videos where I've actually affixed the center of the letter to the background. That can be done in certain situations. When I was making this though, I didn't really want to do that. So I had to come up with another way, and we're going to do that in this video. So keep watching and you'll see how we do it.
First, I want to provide you a little glimpse of what this is going to look like in its final setting so you can get an idea of what we're working with. In this case, I want to backlight this sign. So I want to cut out the palm tree areas, the Pac-Man and the ghost, cut out all the letters and have lighting behind it so it would shine up through. Now I did change the design a little bit just to make it fit nicer on the board. The problem we run into is in instances such as the A or the P. If I were to cut this out, what will end up happening is the center of the P, which needs to remain intact, is going to fall out with all the rest. So, and same with the A, the D, this A here, this E, all these things we're going to have issues with. Down here in the ghost, I'm going to lose the eyes, I'm going to lose the mouth because it'll just follow this perimeter right here. And when it goes and gets in here to cut out this perimeter around the mouth and around the eyes, those things will already all be loose from this first cut. So, there's ways I've kind of worked around this in the past. One way is to keep the center or cut another letter out on another piece of wood that's exactly the same size, but just cut the center out. So just cut the center of the P out, just cut the center of the A out, and so on, and then glue those centers to the backboard that's going to be behind all of this. It works. However, what ends up happening is because there's space behind here for my lighting, that center is going to actually be sitting back and recessed from the surface that this part of the main part of the sign is. So it's not the best idea. It doesn't work the greatest. You still get the look, but I don't like how it turns out. You could also double up the thickness of the letter of that centerpiece to bring it out to the same height as that. I have done this in the past. It does work. It's a little tricky though. So, only other real way to do it is to make stencil type letters. So you'd have to connect for example here, we would have to connect the center of this E to the outside and probably need to do it in 2 points so that it doesn't fall out. And you'd have to do that everywhere. You start doing it here with the eyes and the mouth of the ghost, and it's going to start losing its detail, losing the effect that I was going for. And so I wanted to find another way. So my solution is to back cut behind all of this, and we're just going to cut in a small amount, and then we are going to fill it with epoxy. So how do I go about doing that? Well, what I do is I take a line, and I'm going to just build in a perimeter around all of this. And I want a little bit of spacing because if I'm back cutting, there's a chance that I am going to, I don't want to accidentally cut too far through, or not cut too far through, but not encompass the entire design. So I'm afraid of having an issue where part of the palm tree, let's say, is outside of this epoxy area, and then it's going to look ridiculous. So you got to be careful, make sure that you do this so that it encompasses the entire design. you can see I'm not using extreme precision here. And then I don't want to fill all this with epoxy, so my thought is let's go in here and just take an area and keep it solid, just to save a little bit of money. All right, so that is what it came up with. Now, obviously, this is going to be on the back side of this, so this is not part of my design. My design still includes what you saw initially. I'm going to group these two together. So, group. Now, one way I check this and see if potentially there could be a problem is I highlight the design I'm going to want cut out, and I come over here and there's this mirror horizontal button, and all I'm going to do is flip it and make sure if I flip it, so I'm imagining now this is on the bottom side and I'm getting ready to cut out this dark line here. So I'm getting ready to cut this out. I just want to see if there's going to be any issues where my design extends past the back cut, which I don't see there is. So we can come over here to tool paths. I'm going to go to pocket, and I'm going to pick a large bit. Let's see here. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch downcut bit. And the reason I want to do that is I really don't care about quality here. I just want to cut the area away, and I want to do it in the quickest amount of time as possible. So the piece of wood I'm using is a 1/2 inch thick. So now I got to determine my max depth. What I want to be able to do here is I want to be able to cut the lettering when I flip it over to the front side and get down into this epoxy that I'm going to put in this pocket right here. So the way I chose to do that is I'm just going to make the max depth of this 0.25. And we're just going to call this pocket. And I'm going to hit OK. So what it's going to do is going to cut this out. I'll show you the simulation. So it's going to cut out the white area. I think I forgot to set the thickness of my workpiece here. Yes, I did. 5. Okay. Now let's look at that simulation again. You can see it's going to cut out this darker area here. It's going to leave the rest of it intact. It's going down 0.25 of an inch. All right. So we're going to keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and cut this. So as you can see here, I cut the back out. I went 0.25 deep, and I'm just going to clean up the sawdust off the back here and get it ready for the front cut. Now, because I'm backlighting this, I want the back of it to be white as well. The reason for that is I want it to kind of help reflect that light that's going to be projected from the LED strip that I'm going to put inside of here. So I decided to paint the back of this white just to give that extra brightness and hopefully get better light quality out of it. I didn't think the brown would be a very good surface for that light to be shining on. So that's why I'm going to paint it here real quick. Don't really care about the quality of the paint job, just so long as it's coated good enough to reflect that light. Next, I'm going to fill this with a clear epoxy. I just check the level to make sure that it's not going to get too deep in any areas. Then I mix up the epoxy and pour. I completely guessed on how much epoxy. It's kind of hard to estimate in such a weird shape. So I'm not sure what to tell you on how deep to go here. Just watch as you pour and make sure you don't overflow it. And if you have another project that you can use the excess for, that'd be great. But if not, you're kind of just stuck with a little bit of waste. So you can always, if you didn't mix enough, you could always come back and add some more. That would be one option. Take a little bit extra time, but if you're worried about wasting it, that would be one solution to it. So we'll mix this up, we'll pour it in, and again, this is completely clear, and the sole purpose for this is just to hold things together. So we'll get at that and move on. Once the epoxy dried, I took it back over to the CNC. I loaded up the actual design I wanted to cut out with the palm trees and the Pac-Man and everything like that. And I started cutting it out. Now, I am cutting this out of MDF, which, if you ever cut anything out of MDF, you'll know makes a lot of dust. So I actually put my little dust hood on the router, and I am trying to remove as much of that as possible, so it's a little bit difficult to see as it cuts. Typically, I don't do this in my videos because I like to show the cutout, but in this video, the cutout isn't the important part. The important part is learning how to do this and keep the entire design intact by cutting through and giving that, the whole way through effect. So you aren't going to be able to see the design as it cuts quite as easily as normal. Now, when cutting this out, you need to be sure that you cut partway into that epoxy. So I went 0.25 on the back, probably going to go like 0.3 down from the top. That way I'm going a little bit into that epoxy. I want the light to shine completely through. If you don't break through the MDF here, then it's going to be a little bit of a problem, not going to look quite right. Now, I'm all done cutting out, and I knew this would probably be a slight issue. If you look inside the letters, there is some issues where the router bit made marks in the epoxy, and it's just a machining thing. You really can't avoid it. But the way you can fix it, one nice thing is when you work with epoxy is it kind of self-heals. So what I'm going to do here is just put a real thin layer inside of each letter and each part of the design and allow that to flow out. And what it's going to do is it's going to cover up any of those machine marks. It fills in all the little grooves and makes it so you really can't see them at all. It's a nice little way to kind of fix any issues that you have in this process. So I highly recommend not skipping this step, or you're going to have a bunch of router marks all over your final product.
So you can see here, this is why I wanted to do it a different way. I had this background. It sets back a little bit because I have lights on the inside of here. You can see the color change as I talk. It's a sound sensitive light. I can change it to other settings, but just for showing you, this is what we came up with. But so I didn't want to fix it to the background because then these would be all recessed and it would just be kind of weird. So I did it the way I showed you there with the epoxy. And the reason for that was so that I would have that space behind all the letters to allow for the lights. So I hope you got something out of this video, and we'll just catch you next time. Thanks for watching.